Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining and taking the time to watch this video. My name is Kimmy Feldbauer, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Isis Hernandez, and we're going to take the next few minutes to walk through the drag section of the Orange Line Light Rail project. Closed captioning is available in English and Spanish by clicking the CC button or the settings button on the bottom right of the video window. This is a recording of the drag working group presentation, so if you're interested in participating in live working group sessions so that you can ask questions and provide feedback in real time, please visit www.capmetro.org/get-involved to check out events happening now and to sign up for a future working group meeting. The Orange Line team has established 8 working groups designed to dive a little deeper into each of the project's 8 sections. Stations serve as the boundaries for these working groups, and as part of today's discussion, we'll look at some of the technical aspects of these 2 stations at UT West Mall and Hemphill Park. Let's start with a view of the drag that most of us know when we think of the drag. On your screen, you see Guadalupe at the drag looking south toward downtown. On the left of the screen is the historic UT wall and trees that are adjacent to UT. And then on the other side, the west side of the street, are all the existing buildings today on the drag. The right-of-way you see here is 120 feet, and 96 of that 120 feet is usable on the outside of the historic UT wall. The right-of-way consists of bike lanes, sidewalks, and general traffic and bus lanes that exist today on the drag. This slide gives you a glimpse of how much the drag varies in width, or what we call right-of-way, throughout the segment. For instance, from MLK to 24th Street, we have 120 feet, or the 96 usable feet of right-of-way for designing of the Orange Line alignment. And then as we move north to 24th and 27th Streets, it narrows down to about 80 feet of usable space for the alignment. And then as we move forward to the edge of the northern edge of the drag at 27th to 29th Streets, that's where it is extremely constrained, where we only have 60 to 70 feet of right-of-way to allocate to the alignment. Here is another view of how that cross-section varies today. So as you just saw in the pictures on the last screen, this kind of divvies up what that feet looks like. So with 120 feet, you saw a couple slides ago, and then between 24th and 27th Street, where it's 80 feet of right-of-way, this is what the width of the traffic lanes and the sidewalks, et cetera, look like. A project of this scale means that there are design considerations we must balance in this segment, such as ADA access, which is compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, bus access, bike and pedestrian facilities, traffic pattern modifications, construction duration and impacts, property impacts, on-street parking impacts, cost, and placemaking. We will soon go into some of the technical constraints and opportunities. Please be thinking of your priorities for the feedback portion of this presentation. Knowing we have constrained existing right-of-way to work with, the team examined some of the design options used in these scenarios. The concept of a transit mall is something that kept coming up, and here are a few examples from other parts of the US that have helped us to understand the art of the possible in designing to such constraints. These are just some concepts we examined, to name a few. So let's dive into some of the options that we can make work given the parameters we just explained with the right-of-way along the drag. Isis will walk through the technical schematics, but first let's just give a quick overview of what the options you'll be looking at. So option A is what we refer to as a light rail transit mall between 21st and 29th Streets. And the trade-offs you see are that while it removes bus and vehicle traffic lanes on the area between 21st and 29th, it is a full bike and ped facility. So you see that demonstrated in this cross-section here, where space is allocated and facilities are separated for pedestrians and bike. And then it's enhanced station area. And then also, minding to stay west of that historic UT wall. On the left diagram, you can see that we have sample bus operations for where possible locals or existing local service could possibly be moved to continue servicing the area, but not run along the Guadalupe. This red dash you see is a Dean Keaton extension that we'll use to utilize and move traffic through the area that is normally going down Guadalupe. Option B is light rail and traffic lanes between 21st and 38th Streets. And the trade-off is while we're maintaining vehicle access on the drag, we do have to reduce bike and ped facilities in that area. So going from split facilities to a shared use path, as you see here on the cross section in the middle. Similar on the last diagram, you see the pink dashed lines that show proposed bus sample operations on and off of the drag. And then also this option also does include the Dean Keaton extension to further allocate traffic to the rest of the network. And then option C is a hybrid transit mall where it is light rail and bus lanes only between 21st Street and Dean Keaton, while also maintaining regular traffic lanes on the outside of those limits. So while we do remove traffic from or vehicle traffic from the drag, we do reduce bike and ped facilities to maintain that lane for bus access on the drag. This slide shows street cross sections comparison between the three options. So on the left-hand side, that was option A, which is the light rail transit mall between 21st and 29th. The middle section is the option B that we showed with light rail and traffic lanes maintained between 21st and 38th Streets. And then the third option is option C, that hybrid transit mall of light rail and bus lanes only between 21st and Dean Keaton, and then also the reduced bike and ped facility. So as you can see, you can compare them against each other of what the street allocation looks like to the different facilities. You can see that on these where we have the full bike and ped facilities, bicycles and pedestrians are in split and separate facilities. And then in these options, it's a shared use path. You can see where we maintain a car and a bus lane between 29th and the triangle, but that between MLK and 29th Street, it is light rail only. Let's take a closer look at this design by looking at the engineering drawings. After this slide, Isis is going to take over screen sharing and walk you through the engineering schematic for the drag. Schematics are a technical tool that are used by the engineering team to develop the design. Each page has a legend, however, you will not see the legend while we're zoomed in looking at the schematic, so we want to briefly orient you here on this slide. I'll review some important items from the legend, and just note that this is related to the schematics that Isis will be sharing and not the cross sections that you saw on the previous page. Starting in the top left, you see SV track and NV track. This is southbound track and northbound track. The tracks stick together, so you'll see them side by side like that throughout the schematics. Right below that, you see existing ROW limit. ROW means right-of-way, and then proposed right-of-way limit. These are represented by blue and black dash lines, and they indicate where we might propose additional need for space along the alignment. The rest of the left side is less critical, so we will move on to the right-hand column. The top seafoam green is the at-grade guideway, which indicates that the guideway is at grade or street level. The blue, sky blue, indicates retained, cut, and fill for the guideway. In this section, we will only be showing retained fill toward the southern end of the segment where the portal begins. We use this to show where we are gaining and decreasing elevation as a result of an aerial guideway or a tunnel segment. The orange color indicates that the guideway is fully aerial or elevated above street level. We won't see that in this section, but want to orient you in case you were in any other of the working group sections that cover this material. And similar, you will not see this purple color in this segment, but this indicates that there is underground guideway or a tunnel. The hashed rectangle represents a station platform, and this is where people stand waiting to board and unload from a train. This gray that you'll see extensively on the existing roadway is new and improved pavement for vehicle lanes, and you'll see that throughout the schematics extensively. These last three colors, yellow, green, and magenta, these represent different bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Just below the legend, you'll see that the schematics read south to north, with the south on the left and north on the right. We will start south and work our way north in this presentation. And with that, I will hand it over to Isis to share the engineering design plans.
Thank you, Kimi. As mentioned a minute ago, these are the engineering plans, where the south is to the left of the screen and then the north is to the right of the screen. So the south of MLK, you can find downtown, and then downtown is where the tunnel is. So I want to mention one element that is the same throughout the three different options that we have, and that is the transition between the tunnel to the street level. That is represented by this light blue that you see here. This is what we're calling the retained cut section. And that means that we have, bear with me, we have a wall on each side of the orange line to make the transition between the tunnel and the street level. What happens outside of this retained cut segment varies between options, but this is how we're doing the transition between the tunnel and the street level. So that transition is happening in all of the options between MLK and 21st Street, meaning that by the time that we get to 21st Street, we are completely at street level. Now, let me start with option A. Option A is the option where we have a LRT only on Guadalupe Street. As you can see here, the retained cut section is happening and we don't have a travel lane or we don't have anything for vehicles on each side of the guideway because we're only allowing the orange line LRT to happen on Guadalupe Street. Next to it, to the left or to the west, you're going to see a bicycle represented by the green, a pedestrian sidewalk represented by the yellow, and then a tree area represented by the purple or magenta. To the east side, we are not proposing trees because we are taking advantage of the existing trees that are right there, as you can see right here. So, like I mentioned before, once we get to 21st Street, which is this road right here, we are signalizing this intersection to allow for traffic that is traveling east to west to cross Guadalupe Street. They're not going to be able to drive on Guadalupe Street. North of 21st Street, we have a similar cross section where we have a pedestrian and sidewalk, a sidewalk and a protected bicycle lane, as well as trees on the west side. And then on the east side, we only have a sidewalk and a protected bicycle lane, and we are keeping the existing trees. More important, between 21st and 24th, we have the UT West Mall Station, represented by this square right here. And then this station is connecting to the existing sidewalk. This sidewalk is an important crosswalk that we have for a lot of students use this crosswalk to connect to UT. And so we are connecting to that crosswalk and signalizing as it is right now. Moving north, you're going to see that the cross section stays pretty consistent all the way to 24th Street, where we have a signalized intersection. And again, that's where traffic traveling east and west on 24th Street is going to cross Guadalupe Street. Moving north from 24th Street, we have, same as before, a separate bicycle lane and sidewalk, as well as trees on the west side. And on the east side, we are only having a sidewalk and a bicycle lane. It is important to know that when we get to Dean Keaton, we are proposing an extension to Dean Keaton to connect to San Antonio Street. That is because the traffic that is coming from the east, it being UT or Red River or I-35 or whatever, are able to connect now to San Antonio Street. And this is happening to better improve the traffic connectivity on Dean Keaton. North of that, we have 26th Street that is going to be signalized for pedestrians only. This is only going to be a pedestrian crossing. And then moving north, we get to 27th Street, where we also have a signalized intersection to connect traffic coming east and west on 27th Street. The section between 27th Street and 29th Street is where you are going to see the most changes for this segment. And that is, part of it is driven because we have such a limited existing right-of-way represented, as you can see here, by the dashed black lines. And so we are proposing to extend into the west. Our proposed right-of-way line is represented by the blue lines. We also have in this segment the Hemp Hill Park Station. And then we are also changing how Hemp Hill ends right here. And this is because there's no traffic on Guadalupe Street, right? And so traffic coming down from 29th Street onto Hemp Hill to connect to the apartments and the villas on Guadalupe or any of other businesses right here will have to do a U-turn to go back to 29th Street. Another big difference that you're gonna be seeing is the intersection. The existing intersection is further to the west, somewhere around right here, and we are proposing to move it to the east. That is because the existing layout is less optimal when combining the train with vehicles. So we're taking this opportunity to make these improvements now. Also, the existing geometry of the road, it is not very compatible with the geometry that the train tracks need. Okay, so this is option A. Let me show you a cross section at the station so that you can better visualize what we're talking about. So like I said before, we have protected bicycle lanes on both sides of the road, or excuse me, of the orange line. And then we have sidewalks on both sides as well, with the trees only on the west, and then maintaining the existing trees on the east. Now let's move on to option B. Option B is the option where we have a traffic lane on each side of the guideway. So the option before, we didn't have a traffic lane on each side. It was only the orange line staying on Guadalupe Street. This option does show a traffic lane on each side. So as before, we have the transition between between the tunnel from MLK to 21st Street. The only difference of the scenario before was that we now have a travel lane on both sides of that transition or that retained cut area. I am going to focus now only on the differences between the last option and this option. Everything else that I don't mention is going to be the same as the option before. So the only thing that I'm going to focus right about here is the changes that we need to do to the bicycle and pedestrian facility. So one of the trade-offs that is happening because we are adding a traffic lane on each side of the orange line is that we have less space for bicycles and pedestrians and trees. And so we had to eliminate the trees from the west side of the orange line, and we are combining the bicycle lane and the sidewalk. On the east side, we are maintaining the existing trees and the existing retaining wall that Kimi mentioned earlier on. So that is represented by this yellow shading. That is a shared use path. Everything else is staying the same. We have the same intersections. We have the Jamie Keaton extension. We have the same platforms. Another thing that is changing is, as you can see here, Hemp Hill Parkway is changing. We're no longer proposing the cul-de-sac, and that is because we do have traffic traveling on northbound on Guadalupe Street. So traffic traveling northbound on Guadalupe Street will now be able to take a right onto Hemp Hill Park, and traffic traveling south on Hemp Hill is going to be able to take a right onto Guadalupe Street. That is the only modification that we have on this section. And then one of the other modifications that we have is that we have now traffic traveling southbound on Guadalupe Street will now be able to take a left turn here to continue onto Guadalupe Street. That is one of the biggest differences, and everything else is staying the same on the 29th Street intersection. Now let me go to a cross section. So again, to better understand what is happening. So this is the cross section, same location that I showed before. We are at the UT West Mall station. And the difference is, again, we have traffic in each side of the orange line. And then we, as a trade-off, we have the shared use path instead of the separate facilities. Now moving on to option 3. Option 3 is a little bit of a hybrid between the option A and option B that we discussed earlier. Option C limits the traffic between 21st Street and Dean Keaton to bus only. So this is what you can see here. Here, we have buses only, and south of 21st Street, we have general traffic. So every vehicle can access between MLK and 21st Street. The transition between the tunnel and the street level at the retained cut section is still the same. And the facilities on the side of that for pedestrian and bicycle lanes are still the same as well. So how would this operate is that vehicles traveling on 21st Street will need to take either a left or a right to go to travel south onto MLK. They're not gonna be able to go onto Guadalupe Street traveling north. And vehicles traveling north on Guadalupe Street will need to take a left or a right onto 21st Street, will not be able to continue on Guadalupe Street. Same like before, I'm only going to focus on the differences between this option and the options that you have already seen. So I do want to point out that just like before, we have a shared use path, and that is because we have a travel lane on each side. So we just don't have, that's one of the trade-offs that we were doing here. And so this is Dean Keaton right here, traveling east to west, and similar like before, on 21st Street, the traffic coming onto Dean Keaton will have to make a turn to travel north on Guadalupe Street. They will not be able to travel south. And vehicles traveling south on Guadalupe Street will have to go onto Dean Keaton, and they will not be able to continue on Guadalupe Street because that is going to be buses only from Dean Keaton south. The other location is looking the same as the scenario that you saw before, scenario option B. The Hemphill connection is the same. The 29th Street intersection is the same as well. And let me show those cross sections at the same location as I've been showing before at the UT West Mall Station. And as you can see, this cross section looks very, very, very similar as option B. The only difference is that there are gonna be buses only on this location. And that's all for the options that we are considering for this segment. So I'll take it back to Kimi.
Thank you, Isis. So as you can see here on this slide, we just want to revisit some of the design considerations and the trade-offs that we discussed over the presentation with the various options. So as a reminder, option A is that light rail transit mall only. So light rail only between 21st and 29th Street. And then you see the different circles filled in with green to red, indicating whether they're better or worse. Note that we're comparing them against each other. So A is being compared against B and C, but also how it reflects to existing conditions today. So it's a little bit of an art, but also an effort to start discussion with you all and get feedback on what you consider these design trade-offs to be. So for instance, ADA accessibility, all three options are going to be green. They're going to be better than they are today. We will do more than just comply with ADA, but we will make these state-of-the-art facilities. But then you see for bike and ped facilities, option A has a full green circle. This is enhancing bike ped facilities by removing vehicle through lanes for providing more room and opportunity for bicycles and pedestrians to have more space. But the trade-off is that traffic is taken off of Guadalupe, so that impacts the traffic pattern modifications. So it's just trade-offs between the two, not necessarily always red doesn't mean bad. It's just different or worse than it was before or against the other option. Please take a moment to complete the questions below and tell us what you think about the project's design in this area, including strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. And thank you again, Isis, for joining us and taking the time to review the drag section schematics of the Orange Line Light Rail project. To learn more about what the plans look like south of here, check out the downtown working group video, and then to see the area north of the drag, watch the North Quad working group video. And please visit our Get Involved page at www.capmetro.org/get-involved to find out how to stay involved with the Project Connect program. Thank you very much.